Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this episode, which is not Friday, it's a Monday. Here we are today with our episode of the Inside Workplace Wellbeing podcast, and I'm delighted to be welcomed by Joanne Sweeney. Joanne, we're talking about unlocking the power of AI, strategies for success. You are so welcome. I'm delighted to have you here this morning. You are a specialist digital marketing sector.
Thank you, Dolores, for having me. And I'm glad we finally got to chat after our tech difficulties on Friday.
So I have some feedback here I'm just going to do. Can you hear that, Joanne, as I'm doing my housekeeping here? Can you hear the echo in the background? No?
No, I can't. Let's maybe try the echo. Is that better?
No, Great. So yeah, like the conversation that we're having here is about the whole AI piece. And I'd love you to actually talk a little bit and tell people where you're coming from in the whole, what you've done in this area, because you're an expert in not only the public sector, but also obviously the private sector. You've done so much. Can you tell us a little about your journey?
Yeah, sure. And I guess, I always come from a place of communications and how we can use technology, digital, social media, and now AI to communicate better within our organizations or externally with our clients, or indeed teaching our clients how to be better communicators. And so with the advent of AI, I guess I decided that I wanted to teach myself in all things AI and how I can add it to the suite of services that I'm offering my clients. So about a year ago, I decided to behind the scenes just start teaching myself, training myself, upskilling, and building a whole resource of AI knowledge, I guess, on my own systems, and testing how I might use it in my own business before I teach anyone else. Because, Dolores, I truly believe that AI is going to disrupt the world, businesses, our economies, and professions like never before. I have this line is that, AI might not take your job, but the person who knows AI and who has the skills of AI might take your job. So, we're all at ground zero in terms of knowledge. We're all at the starting blocks. And I think those who commit to learning will succeed and go far.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'd love to, I had a bit of sound issue there. I've just sorted it. So I did get a bit distracted. So apologies about that. I had to go take us off Instagram Live. So what would you say for companies that have embraced the AI technologies already? What impact do you see on their, I suppose, productivity and also their creativity?
Yeah, well, AI has many benefits for organizations, and productivity is definitely one. So increasing our output, saving time, and that's linked to the creativity piece that you mentioned, because AI is great for ideation, it's great for brainstorming, it's great to get you out of writer's block, and it's great to really test what you have and try and improve it and make it better. Now, in saying that, we don't want the internet or our copy to become clones of each other and written by robots and bots. We still want that our writing to spark an emotional appeal, an emotional connection, and to speak relevance to the people that we're trying to get. But we've already seen major companies make moves. So, for example, Amazon have reduced their headcount. They're bringing robots into their warehouses. They're using AI for customer service. We know that Klarna, they are a finance firm, a fintech. They announced their quarterly earnings, and in their quarterly earnings report a couple of weeks ago, they announced that they would be not using some of the big SaaS, software as a service companies, in favor of building out their own CRM, because they're utilizing open source AI. So it's a nervous time for everybody in business. Doesn't matter how successful you've been, if you're not willing to look at how AI is going to disrupt you in terms of your competitiveness or your relevance, then you've really got to question yourself, do you want to be in business for the long term? And that's not scaremongering. You know, I'm a marketer. I am very well aware that I'll be first on that cliff edge. You know what I mean? Who's going to hire me to write? And that's one of my brilliant skills. If AI can write for them, who's going to hire me to write strategy if AI can do it? So I have to understand where my value add comes from. And so anyone watching this or live or watching the replay, that's the question. You know, is AI going to disrupt you? How is it? And how do you adapt so that the value to the customer remains?
Yeah, wow. So it's almost like you look at it from two angles there. I just thought as you were speaking, you know, because AI really does give a competitive edge then to companies who are adapting it and who are, I don't know if I say early adopters, because I suppose AI is around for so long that we're just talking about it more now. But I suppose maybe it's about that whole honing in on the competitive edge it can give us, rather than looking at it being, because it is disruptive, as you said, but there you go.
So we did this brilliant task when I was working for Google's Digital Academy, and as trainers, we were put in front of their biggest clients, and these were, you know, some of the biggest brands in the world, from Disney to Deutsche Bank to Volkswagen to the Body Shop. So these were institutions and empires of business. But we had this one task where we asked their CMOs and their agency collaborators to really think about, if they were to start their business today, what would it be? And in the context of it being an app. And the reason that we asked them that question is that they were too big to be that agile. They just couldn't launch an app like Uber, like Airbnb. You know, like Airbnb doesn't own any accommodation. It's simply a piece of technology, and it matches people looking for accommodation with people who want to rent accommodation, right? And so now we could also play this game ourselves and going, if I was starting my business now, leveraging AI, what would I do? And that's exactly what I'm doing in my business. So I'm thinking about the extra pillar in my business, and that is AI for marketing. So I've been very deliberate. In my own head, I've committed to it, and I'm going to produce value by teaching people to better understand AI and how to leverage it for their own good, whatever that looks like. So we have to be really intentional right now on whether we're going to sit on the fence. You know, we can say, oh, it's just, you know, another tech craze, maybe like the .com boom and then bust. I don't believe so. I really don't believe so. And I follow a lot of people. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So I try and educate and inform myself on what is happening in the market. But the point I want to make here is that us as solopreneurs who are very agile, who aren't carrying a lot of capital or staff, we have a brilliant opportunity to be early adopters and to lean into the technology right now for our own industry. So there's a huge opportunity, and we can all self-learn. You know, we can take courses, or we can just go to YouTube, we can go to TikTok, whatever your choice is. But I truly believe that this is one that we should be embracing if we want to remain relevant, but understand how it's relevant to your industry.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I suppose. And is that where you come in then? Because I was going to ask you, like, how is it that you do help companies, you know, put a strategy together to integrate AI into their company, let's say, because we're all so different.
Yeah, and you know what, Loris, I'm staying in my own lane, and I think that's an important piece of advice too. I'm staying in my marketing lane. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go in and, you know, talk about transformation and overall systems. I want to talk specifically to comms and marketing people. I want the comms and marketing department to be the early adopters to create the first use case of AI, to pilot it. And then from that, they can then expand AI across the organization. So I'm staying in my lane, you know what I mean? I'm staying with my tribe, and because that's what I know. And why would I change now? That's where I can add most value. So what I'm doing is teaching, you know, the A to Z of AI for marketing giving the fundamentals of what we need to know about AI from a comms perspective, all of the things that matter around introducing AI from a comms perspective, from data governance to oversight to automation to the tools, to maintaining data integrity of the organizations. You know, I work a lot with government and public sector, and then how to increase productivity, reduce costs, and for public sector to really leverage all the information that they have internally in their organizations that very often doesn't see the light of day because they have too much information. So I'm developing a framework where I can teach people in it. They can apply it to their comms and marketing department, and they can create a use case and then present that to senior leadership to then build trust in AI within organizations. But it'll be a journey for sure. I mean, you know, I'm doing this for the first time, so I'm going to have to learn with my first cohort who are joining me on the 30th of September. On the AI diploma for government and public sector marketing. So we'll learn together, and it'll be a shared experience.
And that's phenomenal. You know, that it is, and as you say, it's a journey. So what risks would you associate with the adoption of AI, and how do you support companies then to mitigate them? And is that what happens throughout the journey that you bring people on?
So listen, we've all been testing and learning with ChatGPT, you know, with Midjourney, with Claude, with Jasper, you know, with Google's Gemini. Even Meta has Meta AI. But there's one thing that everyone needs to understand is that when you're inputting information and data and, you know, playing with these tools, they're taking that data and they are using what you're giving them to train their own LLMs, which are called large language models. And so we're part of that game. We're part of that industry. Now, there are features where you can turn off your data and what you're inputting, that it's not used for training their models. So you need to go into ChatGPT. If you're paying for the paid version, you can do this. If you're the free version, you don't have an opportunity because there's no such thing as free, right? There's somebody's having a lunch out of you at some stage. So you just need to remember that. But in ChatGPT 4.0, you can actually go in and you can toggle off where your information is used to train their LLMs. So data security and IP protection are two of the biggest concerns and risks that organizations will have around this, because you can imagine people working in public sector or in any commercial company inputting private, proprietary, confidential information into these LLMs, and that information then being in this matrix, in this mix for ChatGPT to spit it out at a later stage. Now, there are copyright cases in the courts, also copyright and infringement of intellectual property. That's another issue. We haven't had any cases come through yet, but I'm sure there will be. And then, of course, legislation is always second to customer behavior and customer use. So there'll be this middle ground where we don't have so much regulation and protection. But I would say data security, intellectual property are two of the biggest risks that companies need to mitigate against.
Yeah, and I was talking to Lydia Garla Maloney about policies last week, and we did talk about, she's also, you know, employment law expert, so she did talk about the law, that the legislation that came in, but there again, it takes a while for these things to be actually, you know, a framework for those even people. So it is a starting game, really. And I'm glad that you pinpointed those 2 points, because that's what we talked about as well, especially like your own, like that if and it's all this like not knowing, isn't it? The fear around not knowing is huge. If we put this in, like I did not know that you couldn't sort of turn off the one part of that in the free version where you can in the paid version. So I think that's why we need to learn from experts like yourself. And I think fear really around the whole AI is quite valid for those reasons when we don't know. Let's just say you have a scenario where you have the company knowing that AI is coming in, you know, telling the comms department, well, there's AI now, you know, would your job not be easier? But the company employer maybe not knowing the parameters and all of this confusion. really, and not knowing that if I put this information in, it'll be spitted out for someone else. And if it's client information, I think really the whole fear around it can be mitigated by really working with experts like yourself, so that people know everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet on this. This is what we want. So this is the policy we put in place. And this is how we keep our company information private, or maybe we decide we don't input this information. It is a whole minefield, I suppose, for people when they're starting off.
Yeah, and this is why there are three things. So the most asked question I get about AI is, Joanne, what are our first steps? What are the first things that we need to do? They're overwhelmed by the information. The language, the technology can be quite complex, but you don't need to be a coder. So there's three things that I say. Number one, you need the knowledge, because you can't make decisions if you don't have the information. So, trusted sources, build up your own knowledge, however you want to do that. Secondly, you need a policy. So that's the rules of engagement that you talk about. How do we interact with AI in our organization? What is permitted? What is not permitted? And so that people are very well aware of those boundaries, because they don't want to inadvertently get in trouble and find themselves talking to HR, right? Because they didn't know. And then thirdly, after you've got education and a policy, is you need a use case. So every organization needs a use case of how we used AI for our benefit, right? So when you have that use case, then you can scale the use case in a large organization, or you can expand it to other parts of your business. So education, policy, and develop your first use case. So it could be quite simply, how do we use ChatGPT in terms of content planning and content repurposing? Do we set up automations with make.com, with into Claude, then into repurpose.io, so that all our marketing, our copy, and our content creation and our social is all automated? That would be amazing. Of course we should be doing this, but we need to do it within the parameters that's safe for the organization, and the information is kept within the company.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot there, isn't it? And it's not, I suppose, really, but it's breaking it down. It is breaking it down and starting at the very beginning of the journey, which is great that you're bringing people on a journey with your diploma in AI, because they can start off and learn from scratch, really, and really understand the ins and outs. I mean, when you talk about it there, it does sound wonderful about repurposing, and especially for solopreneurs like myself. And a lot of my audience will be people that are solopreneurs as well, is that we can see the benefit of it, but we mightn't have the time to sort of, or if we spend our time learning about it, then we're not doing the work. So there's always that, and I think the learning part is huge. We need to know ourselves before we start using it, the pitfalls, but also the advantages, because the advantages are huge. And maybe that's what actually stops people doing it, working more with the ChatGPT, because of that fear bit of, oh my God, if I do this, then I'm wasting time on that. And it is, oh my, confusion.
Yeah, and there is a trade-off, right, with investing in knowledge and learning and education. There's a trade-off of time. But again, if we're looking at how we can adapt how we work, what we deliver, what value we give to our customers, then that's something that we have to invest in. And the other thing that I would say is choose to learn where you'll have something concrete at the end. So, you can learn to use the tools, but what you really want to do is you want to learn how its application can have a finished product or have a business win at the end. So if I take these 6 steps, I will have saved, 3 days a week on marketing, or half a day, or 3 days a month, or half a day a week on marketing, or I can, deliver this myself as opposed to hiring somebody else to do it. So there has to be a tangible business win. I think especially for solopreneurs, because, solopreneurs do everything, and I've got a very small team. So, I'm in that bag that, at weekends or early mornings, I'm teaching myself, I'm writing, I'm learning, because during the day I'm making money serving clients. But try and find trainers and experts that will give you something tangible at the end.
I like that. I like that. Baby steps. Look at what you want, and then and look at what it can give you. I really like that. Joanne, I do a lot of workplace well-being with companies, and I talk an awful lot about culture. So I'd like to ask you, how do you see AI, and have you seen, in relation to, has it changed the culture and operations within organizations that you've worked with?
This is going to be one of the biggest stumbling blocks, Dolores, and you know that you and I have spoken about this extensively, and you're going to come in and deliver a specialist module on this topic because it's not my field of expertise. But what I have experienced to date is a lot of pushback from organizations and even public sector marketing pros and people in radio and different organizations saying, it hasn't been tested fully yet. We don't know how it can add to the bottom line yet. We're afraid of that data. So fear is resulting in paralysis and a brick wall. And, ignoring AI, I would say, is futile. Absolutely futile. And some people don't want to be early adopters because guess what? They want the early adopters to do all the learning, all the failing, and then they want to come in at the next iteration. That's also a smart move, right? That's also a smart move. But I'm trying to work with organizations who want to be those early adopters. You know what I mean? That's really who we're going to be speaking to in this market. But you're going to have to convince leadership. Leadership need to have buy-in to this. You can't have staff going rogue. Microsoft released a study, a global study. It's called AI is Here, So What Next? And it's brilliant because they're saying that, over 2/3 of people at work are using AI, whether their bosses know it or not. So we have people going rogue in inverted commas without the policies, without the standards. So, leaders got to lead here. And Dolores, we need people like you to come and coach them around this fear, because leadership is about, evaluating risk, but also leaning into trends and equipping teams and yourselves with enough knowledge to kind of move as opposed to be stagnant. Because if we're stagnant, we're going backwards.
And it's the communication is the thing. Communication is, oh my goodness, in everything, in every part of our life. I think lack of communication shows up, when we perceive somebody else. We all have these different perceptions, and that's where I think really management, everyone needs to come together and really look at these fears and address concerns that the employees have, because different employees will have different concerns, different managers will have different concerns, but really, at the end of the day, the concerns are all kind of around the same type of things, like trust. Like, as you said, does the employee trust where their information is going? Does the management understand the issues around the trust that the employees have? Is the confidence levels, engagement, satisfaction, and ethical perception? I think that one is really huge, because we all have unconscious biases that we come from, and I do a lot of that work with companies around the whole unconscious bias. But then employees might also fear, what's this thing called AI? Are we going to be treated fairly without bias or discrimination? But these are the kind of things that you can get across when we all come together like that. We do courses, we do workshops, whatever. Employers, employees, management come together and address the concerns. And that's why I actually am so delighted to have partnered with a company, An Even Better Place to Work, because they have a diagnostic tool that doesn't discriminate and that doesn't have any unconscious bias. It's a tool that produces data that is actually private to the employee. A company can bring it in and really gauge all of these fears. And that's the way that they can tackle any AI fears for themselves as well. And it's all very transparent, and really see what the whole mood and satisfaction and confidence level of the employees are. And then from there, take steps.
And I wonder, Dolores, could you use that tool to do take the temperature of employees around what they feel about AI, introducing AI?
Totally.
That would be amazing. And maybe it starts with senior leadership, and then after some training, after building the knowledge and the skills capacity, doing that, using that diagnostics tool post all of that activity. That is a superpower. And for somebody like me, my clients want evidence, they want expertise, but they want evidence this is going to work. So, you providing something like that in terms of the workplace well-being and, really taking the temperature of staff at all levels, I think would be transformative. It would really help move the dial on AI adoption.
Oh, totally. I like that they have one of the tools is called artificial intelligence at work, the diagnostic tool. So it's actually based around, like, there's over 20 questions, and it's all about gauging, gauging the whole employee satisfaction level. What's the word you use? Gauging the temperature. It's everything around, and it covers all of those areas, like their ethical perceptions and everything. And it doesn't, they're confidential. The employee that answers the question, the manager doesn't see the answer that an individual employee gives. However, they see the whole, the benchmark as to what a particular team, let's say, they might say this particular team is struggling with this particular issue around fear. And then there's, then it's, again, it's like, I always think it's my left brain, it's that analytics, because then you can really go in and you can hone in on what the company actually needs and what the employee needs. Because if we're talking employee engagement, how are employees engaged? If they feel heard, seen, and feel like they belong, and if you're giving them something and listening to them, that covers those bases, and then we'll have better employee engagement. Because, like, to me, workplace wellbeing isn't ticking a box. It really is going in there to have workplaces where employees are more satisfied.
And actually, that tool will also ensure that employees are taking on the AI journey. They're feeding into the policy of the organization. And so it's cross-organization. It's not top-down. You know what I mean? It's not a dictatorial approach. So I think we should talk more on the sideline about, how, I can use that diagnostics tool in my work, because I think that will be hugely valuable, because the data doesn't lie, and we want that human input from our people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that you said that.
Yeah.
Connection, because it is the human input, and that is what, at the end of the day, will boost productivity. The bottom line is when we bring everyone along on this journey that they're on. AI is here to stay. And actually, you put a post up there last week, and I meant to start with that actually, but I had a bit of another sound issue today. So you said the cost of inaction is higher than ever. AI is rapidly transforming public sector marketing. Staying still means falling behind. And I think that definitely is so true. When we can understand employee, the atmosphere, the sentiment around everything, and we put a framework in place, you put a framework in place, that's then really when I think companies can go on this journey together and go on it successfully.
Yeah, for sure. And, they say that the AI revolution is bigger than the internet itself. And
Wow.
like we were here for the internet, right? For the advent of the internet and email and smart devices, and and AI has been around for decades, but it's become mainstream now. And how it's expedited in such a short period of time is actually where the disruption is coming. And even I was watching an interview with Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI that own ChatGPT, and the interviewer was putting it to him, are you afraid of this technology? And you could see that he is definitely afraid of the technology, because these are human computers. These are computer brains that are far more intelligent and intelligible in terms of understanding complex information. There was one study done recently where a PhD student, and you know how long a PhD takes, they could re-engineer their research from their 4-year, 5-year PhD in a couple of days. And the preciseness was there. So, this is the reality. We either talk about it and demystify it and educate ourselves, or we let the technology dictate the human race. And the other thing that I would say is we cannot let the big conglomerates and the multinationals who are have monopolies in this field. So we've got Microsoft, who are investors in OpenAI. We've got Google, who's got Gemini. We've got Meta, who's got Meta AI. We've got Elon Musk now who has his own tool, the name I just can't remember. So we've got this small group of very rich companies who are dictating how AI is going to evolve with that has inherent bias. And listen, I'm only a little minion trying to learn this, and I don't have huge expertise, but my point and my perspective on this is that every industry should be empowering themselves, because you know your industry, you know your people, you know the value you provide, and you should be dictating. And the only way that you're going to have any edge now is to take AI and to run with it, and to try and leverage it. But I understand this costs money. And this is where, again, our states and our governments step in and, maybe providing education for all, maybe, making it as part of, primary school curriculums. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but we've got to be innovative and we've got to think outside the box, because the train has left the station. The AI train is coming down the tracks. It's here. Listen, it's gathering dust.
It is. But Joanne, you are taking, you are leading the way. You are an earlier doctor. I have going along the bottom there. Well, for somebody like me, you are anyway, because you are doing this diploma in AI for the public sector marketing. I put it along the banner there, the ticker at the end. But are you also doing it? Is there any way that people can work with you, let's say, should they wish to?
Yeah, I know. Listen, I was speaking at a business conference over the weekend, right? And I was like, gosh, I'm never there to champion small businesses like my own. And I often feel that, how could I add value? But it's something I'm thinking about. I'm currently redoing, my website, digitaltraining.ie. That's the limited company. And then Public Sector Marketing Institute is a sub-brand. And that's where I divert all my public sector clients. But I think I'm going to do something on a smaller scale for maybe the small business community, maybe in Q1 of 2025, because, yeah, I mean, if I can help and make it accessible and affordable, then maybe it's something I can do.
Yeah, I think I listened to because I have listened to another interview or your own podcast last week, actually. People can go back in. Actually, can you give me your place where people can connect with you more, and I'll put it up there going across.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a load of webinars on our. Let me give you the link. We've got a load of webinars on our website, and while they're framed public sector marketing, I'll put it in chat here, Dolores.
I listened to them, and I'm not public sector, but I listened to one last week, and I was taking down notes.
Yeah. So I run a free webinar every month. I mean, my kind of principle around all of this is there's free education for anyone who wants it, through the podcast, through the webinar, through the blogs I write, through my Tuesday e-sign. Yes, it's free in public sector marketing because that's who I'm selling to. But if you benefit, that's a win for you. And if public sector marketing pros can't afford to pay for trainings or consulting with me, then there's enough there for them to learn with me. So, it's an inclusive policy that I have. And because I just remember when, I didn't have much and I needed to learn, I wanted a single source of truth. And, I think it's nice to give back. So yeah, the webinars
you definitely do that. You definitely do that. You definitely do give back. And if people want to go in there, I have it going across the bottom there, your past webinars, because you'll always pick up something. I'm a firm believer. I love learning myself too. And I've been listening to you, I think, for, oh my goodness, maybe 10, 15 years with all your webinars, and always learning from you. Another question I'd like to ask you, Joanne, is how do you personally see AI evolving over the next, let's say, 5 years? And how are you preparing yourself or your clients? Or are you just kind of going with where we are now? Are you thinking long-term and always listening?
I mean, 5 years is actually a long time in
Probably
AI.
Is.
You could even ask that question and say, where do you see AI in 12 months?
Yeah.
Because the difference is going to be so great. I think that it's going to result in a lot of people being laid off in favor of automations and chatbots and AI agents being introduced. However, and I was at a European Parliament conference a year ago, hosted by the EPP group, and I was facilitating a session on technology and the future of work. And there were EU policymakers who I was interviewing, and he had figures for every single sector. You know what I mean? He was rhyming out how many jobs would be lost, but there will be a net gain. There will be a net gain of jobs. So for people who are fearful that AI will take their job, but there's another job waiting for you. You know what I mean? I'm in a mastermind with a group of people on AI, and there are people of all ages, of all demographics, from all across the world who are saying, you know, we need to educate our tribe. And there was somebody from Asia, and he said, you know, I want to specialize in empowering, you know, people over the age of 60 in AI. You know what I mean? So we all have a responsibility to take our tribes with us. Where is it going to go? I think that more people are going to be using it. I think that organizations are going to have policies. The education business is predicted to go to, I mean, up to about 30 billion in the next 12 months in terms of people learning about it. So there's definitely an opportunity to get into the education space. And obviously that's where I am. So it's going to become more mainstream. We're going to see jobs disrupted, AI agents now integrated. And, you know, you could nearly say goodbye to Google and hello to Gemini, because our behavior is changing too. You know, when's the last time you went to Google, and have you been to ChatGPT more than you've been to Google in the last 7 days? Be aware of your own behaviors. And we probably will have some precedent judicial cases where, you know, some people get in trouble for infringement of copyright or for data security breaches. That's all just par for the course, I guess. But I don't know. I just think it's going to be dramatic. We're going to have more use. We're going to have AI doing a lot more of the work that we've been doing. And I think the economy is going to shake it a little bit because of the nervousness. You know, as we transform, we get nervous, right? And people don't know what to do. So that's going to come. But I think we need to take away the fear, and we need to acknowledge its power when it's used in the right way. Because I promise you, the bad actors out there who have bad intentions are often the smartest people at using this technology. You know what I mean? So AI is another gift to the cyber criminals out there. So we cannot let the bad actors be smarter than us who are using AI for good and with good intentions. So I think there's a whole social responsibility there too.
Wow, that's a brilliant addition to the conversation, and it's so true. As well as fear, do you think fear is the biggest resistance, or what is the biggest resistance that you see that coming up with people, both, I suppose, from both ends? I kind of come more from the employee part at times, but like from both.
Yeah, so number one is I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. There's just so much. Number two is, but why should I learn? Because I'm not going to be allowed to use it at work anyway. So I'm not going to waste my time. Number three, people are saying they don't agree with it ethically. So they're like, no, I don't want to be reading content that's AI generated. I don't want to be watching videos that's AI generated. So you saw in my webinar last week, I showed you, you know, AIJ, which was me, but it actually was my AI avatar. I also showed you our AI assistant, Melissa, who was completely an AI avatar. And people were like, no, we're not here for this. You know what I mean? But hey, you know what I mean? If I can have my AI assistant, Melissa, produce about 30 videos, but the content is for me and I quality approve it, then maybe I'll go with it. But so the ethical part is another big one that I'm coming up against. And I get it. You know what I mean? And you got to respect people's principles, but we got to embrace AI in a principled way.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm going to put that up as a quote. You know, and I think that is huge. And I think that is a huge topic, because I see that as well. I see that a lot when I'm in workplaces. Joanne, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to leave us with? Whether it be a little quote or around AI, or just some positivity to get people to adopt and be part of this journey, this evolution and revolution?
So I would say don't fear it. Make a commitment to yourself and an intention that you're going to learn more about it. And to reduce the overwhelm, choose one single source of information that you can go to. And then you go, whether it's a podcast, you can search on Spotify, you can search on YouTube, choose one person that you kind of speaks your language, you like listening to them. You do a bit of vetting on whether they know their stuff or not, and just sit with them and get your daily or your weekly or your monthly dose. And that soon it will go in. It will go into the understanding side of your brain, and it will all just come together. So it's just, I guess, stimulate yourself in some AI content that you enjoy listening or watching the person.
Love it. So tell us a little bit as well about your diploma and how can people, if they're interested in signing up, I have it going across the bottom there, how people can contact you in relation to that.
Thanks, Dolores. So it's the professional diploma in AI for government and public sector marketing, staying in my same lane. So there are 10 modules. And what I do is I go from what is AI to demystifying the tech and the language around it, to better understanding how it can be used for marketing. So there'll be a framework in there on how you can apply AI in your workplace. We'll talk about governance. We'll talk about data security. We'll talk about ethics. We'll talk about developing your own policy. And then we'll go into the practical application of using around 10 AI tools. There'll be tutorials on that. And then towards the end, it will all come together in how you can create your own use case in your own government agency from a marketing perspective. So that will be their assignment at the end, that they have created their very own AI case study in their workplace, and they'll have a policy. So when I do courses, I can't just have people having knowledge, they have to have application. And so they will be an early adopter in themselves. So I've already have a number of people who have signed up, and these people are early adopters. So there's a 60% discount because it's the first cohort. And as I said, we'll learn together. And that discount is open until the end of the year. It's on demand. So you get one lecture a week. There's 10 lectures. Each lecture will require about 2 hours of study. And then there's a task after every lecture to reinforce the learning. So you might write, an expressive piece. You might do multiple choice quiz. You might be told to go and look at a tool. And all that is just to cement the knowledge. But then you get one-to-one mentoring with me. So I'm kind of like your real life consultant. It won't be AIJ, it'll be real Joanne. And I will then kind of have those one-to-one conversations with you in terms of that practical application and supporting with you with the assignment, because we don't have enough use cases in public sector at the moment. We've got some kind of high scale ones, but we need smaller ones. And so that's it.
Journey.
It's a journey. It's a journey. And I'm going to learn also through this.
And I love that as well, because I did a course recently as well where we had to, at the end, when you do your little bits every week and you do your homework and you do your assignments, at the end then when, you have something tangible. And really, I brought that as well into my business, what I was doing in this course, like what you're bringing people on. And I mean, what better way to learn? You're working with an expert, and you may as well, do all those steps along the way, so that at the end, look at this tangible thing you have, and it will be just so much easier to do it as we go along on the journey. I'm excited for the people that join you, that you're helping to be the early adopters in the public sector. Lucky them. Let's get you into the private sector as well, maybe next year, as you said.
Maybe. But listen, Dolores, thank you so much. And we're going to continue our conversation around how you can step in on that diploma and with me on the whole culture and wellness piece. And so your work is important in this phase too.
Joanne, thanks very much for the conversation. I will be definitely sharing it far and wide, and best of luck to you on in your professional diploma. Joanne, talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Dolores. Bye-bye.